There is something quietly corrosive about comparison. It creeps in like a shadow, subtle, seemingly harmless, and before you realize it, it begins to steal your peace, your joy, your sense of enoughness. We live in a world that profits from our self doubt, a world that tells us we must look like her, achieve like him, speak like them to be considered worthy. But here is what I've learned again and again: you are never meant to be anyone else. You are here to be you in all your depth, your complexity, your light, and your learning. It's so easy to get caught up in timelines: who graduated, who bought a house, who found love, who seems so endlessly certain. But your timeline is sacred. It is not late, it is simply yours. And the moment you start honoring it instead of rushing it or resenting it, something beautiful begins to unfold. Authenticity cannot breathe in the presence of comparison. When we measure ourselves against others, we shrink the space where our truest self can live. And that matters. Because when you silence who you are to echo someone else, the world loses something only you could give. I want to remind you of something you may have forgotten. Your worth is not up for comparison. It is not something that can be increased by applause or diminished by silence. It just is. You are enough. Not when you achieve more, not when you fix everything, not when you finally measure up. Now, as you are, yes, admire people, learn from them, let their stories light your path, but never let them become the mirror you judge your reflection by. You don't have to outshine anyone. You just have to own your light. Comparison is a distraction. It pulls you away from your purpose, your progress, your presence. So the next time you feel the weight of someone else's life pressing against yours, take a breath, come back to yourself. Ask, who am I becoming? What makes me proud today? Everyone's journey is unique. It's one of the most profound truths we often forget in the rush to belong, to succeed, to prove ourselves. We are taught from a young age to measure our progress by common milestones: graduations, promotions, marriages, titles. But life doesn't unfold in a straight line, and it certainly doesn't unfold the same way for everyone. Just as no two fingerprints are the same, no two life paths are meant to mirror each other. Your journey is shaped by your choices, your struggles, your moments of courage and silence, your wounds and your healing. Even when two people start at the same point, their experiences will lead them to entirely different destinations. That is not failure. That is individuality. When we try to fit into timelines that aren't ours, we often end up abandoning our own growth. We rush through chapters meant to be savored. We doubt ourselves because someone else's life looks more polished, more successful, more fulfilled. But appearances can be deceiving, and purpose cannot be imitated. What makes life meaningful isn't how quickly you get somewhere, it's the depth of what you learn along the way. Some people bloom early, others bloom later. Some take the scenic route, others go straight to the summit. All are valid. And comparison makes you believe you are behind, when in truth, you are exactly where you need to be for the person you are becoming. Your story is not less worthy just because it doesn't look like someone else's. There is no universal deadline for success, no single blueprint for happiness. Your journey is your own, intimate, evolving, and sacred. Trust it, even when it feels slow, especially when it feels uncertain. That's often where the most beautiful things begin. Comparison diminishes authenticity in quiet but powerful ways. It convinces us, often without our realizing, that who we are is somehow not enough, that our voice must sound more like theirs, that our body must look more like hers, that our choices must reflect the approval of people who don't even know our story. The moment we begin to compare ourselves to others, we shift our focus from becoming to performing. We trade truth for imitation. And in doing so, we slowly lose touch with what makes us original. Authenticity isn't about perfection. It's about being rooted in who you are, not who you think you should be. It's about owning your ideas, your values, your pace, your voice. But comparison blurs those things. It tempts you to filter your personality, adjust your dreams, and rewrite your story to fit someone else's narrative. And the tragedy of that is not just that you start living a life that isn't yours, but that the world misses out on what only you can offer. When you compare, you start measuring yourself against standards that were never designed for you. What made someone else successful, loved, or accepted might not be the path meant for you. And trying to mold yourself into their image doesn't make you more worthy, it makes you more distant from your truth. Authenticity requires courage. It asks you to stand tall in your own presence, even when it feels easier to conform. Comparison isn't just a thief of joy, it's a thief of identity. It robs you of the richness that comes from being fully, unapologetically yourself. And the irony is, the more you embrace your authenticity, the less you'll feel the need to compare at all. Because there's no competition in being real. Social media is not real life, though. It often disguises itself as such. We scroll through curated images, polished captions, and highlight reels that portray an illusion of constant happiness, success, and perfection. But behind every filtered photo is a story you cannot see: uncertainties, insecurities, struggles, and quiet moments of self doubt that never make it to the screen. What we're witnessing is not reality, it's a version of reality, edited, selected, and often exaggerated for approval, validation, or attention. The danger lies in how easily we internalize these images as truth. We begin to compare our messy, imperfect human lives to someone else's carefully chosen snapshots, their vacations, their milestones, their seemingly effortless beauty or confidence become benchmarks we think we must meet. And when we fall short, which we inevitably do, we start to feel small, inadequate, and left behind. But the truth is, we are comparing our behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel. That's never a fair comparison. Social media doesn't show the sleepless nights, the quiet breakdowns, the moments of doubt, or the long road it took to get to that single smiling photo. It doesn't reflect the fullness of a person, only fragments chosen to impress, inspire, or sometimes mask pain. And while connection through technology can be beautiful, it should never replace the grounding truth of real life lived off screen, in real time. The more we treat social media as reality, the more disconnected we become from our own truth. And the more we anchor our worth in likes, comments, or followers, the more we surrender the deeper, lasting sense of value that comes from within. Life is not a performance. It's not a perfectly posed moment. It's raw, changing, flawed, and beautiful. And that, not what fits in a frame, is what makes it real. Your worth is intrinsic. It is not something you earn, prove, or perform into existence. It is not dependent on achievements, appearances, relationships, or recognition. It exists simply because you exist. From the moment you took your first breath, you are already enough. But somewhere along the way, the world taught you otherwise. It told you that you had to meet certain standards to be valued, that your grades, your body, your status, or your ability to fit in would determine your significance. This belief is deeply flawed because anything that can be gained conditionally can be taken away. And true worth, real grounding, enduring worth doesn't vanish when you fail, fall behind, or feel unseen. It's not measured in applause. It doesn't disappear when you're quiet, struggling, or still figuring things out. You don't have to be the best to be valuable. You don't have to be extraordinary to matter. We live in a culture that often treats people like products, ranking, evaluating, labeling, but people are not products. You are a living, breathing soul, a whole, complex person, and your worth is found in the things that cannot be measured: your kindness, your resilience, your capacity to care, to question, to grow, to hope. No one else can replace your voice, your vision, or the way you move through the world. You carry a light that doesn't need comparison to shine. When you remember that your worth is intrinsic, you begin to move differently. You stop asking, "Am I good enough?" and start affirming, "I am already enough." That shift isn't arrogance, it's healing, it's power reclaimed. And it's the beginning of living not from fear, but from a quiet, unshakable knowing that who you are is worthy, just as you are. Comparison stifles growth because it shifts your focus from progress to performance. When you're constantly looking sideways, measuring yourself against others, you stop paying attention to your own journey. You begin to chase someone else's definition of success instead of uncovering your own. Growth requires presence, honesty, and self awareness. But comparison replaces those things with distraction, pressure, and self doubt. It tells you that if you haven't achieved what someone else has, you're behind. That if your path looks different, you're doing something wrong. But growth is never a race. It's not linear, it's personal, messy, and often invisible to the outside world. Real transformation happens quietly in the way you handle challenges, in the way you choose integrity over approval, in the courage it takes to keep going when no one is watching. Comparison blinds you to that quiet progress. It makes you feel like you're failing when in fact you might be in the middle of something deeply important. When you compare, you often begin to mimic rather than innovate. You dilute your originality in an attempt to match someone else's pace or outcome. But you weren't meant to be a copy. You were meant to evolve through your own lessons, your own timing, your own truths. Every time you choose authenticity over comparison, you create space for real growth to take root. To grow, you have to give yourself permission to be where you are, to honor your rhythm, to understand that the setbacks, the detours, even the delays are shaping you in ways success never could. Let others inspire you, but never let their path make you doubt the worth of your own. Because growth thrives not in comparison, but in self-compassion, intention, and the quiet courage to keep becoming. Celebrate others without losing yourself. Because admiration and self-worth can exist side by side. Someone else's success is not your failure. Their beauty does not diminish yours. Their voice does not silence yours. But comparison tricks us into believing that there's only so much space at the table, that someone else shining means we must dim. That's a lie. There is more than enough light to go around. And when we truly understand that, we can learn to applaud others without questioning our own value. It's a beautiful thing to be inspired by someone, to witness their growth, their courage, their resilience, and feel moved by it. But that inspiration becomes harmful when it turns into self-erasure. You don't need to imitate someone to appreciate them. You don't need to shrink yourself to lift them up. True celebration comes from a place of confidence, where your admiration is not rooted in envy, but in genuine joy. It's okay to want to grow. It's okay to aspire for more. But your motivation should never come from a place of feeling less than. Because if you lose yourself in the process of honoring someone else, you end up betraying the very thing that makes you valuable, your uniqueness. You are not meant to be a mirror of someone else's greatness. You are meant to discover your own. Celebrate others for what they bring to the world, but remember what you bring too. Your presence, your experiences, your compassion, your creativity. Those are irreplaceable. The more you ground yourself in who you are, the easier it becomes to uplift others with a full heart, not a fractured one. And in doing so, you create a world where admiration isn't a competition, but a celebration of the many ways to be powerful, worthy, and whole. Focus on your personal evolution, because that is where your true power lies. Growth is not about proving yourself to others. It's about becoming more of who you were always meant to be. The world will try to pull your attention in 1,000 directions toward accolades, validation, and endless comparisons. But none of that matters if you are disconnected from your own becoming. The real question is not, am I better than them? But am I growing into the best, most honest version of myself? Your personal evolution is sacred. It unfolds in moments that no one else sees, in the way you choose kindness when it's hard, in the way you get back up after failing, in how you let go of things that once defined you. This kind of growth is quiet, steady, and often slow. It doesn't demand applause. It demands patience, presence, and a deep sense of integrity. When you focus on yourself, not from a place of selfishness, but from a place of responsibility. You begin to build a life that is rooted, not reactive. You start noticing your own progress instead of measuring your pace against others. You develop clarity about what matters to you, what brings you peace, and what needs to be left behind. That's how transformation happens. Not through comparison, but through commitment to yourself. This doesn't mean you ignore the world around you. It means you engage with it from a place of wholeness rather than insecurity. You begin to see others not as competition, but as fellow travelers, each on their own journey, each with their own lessons. And as you evolve, you start to realize the most powerful thing you can be is not better than someone else, but more fully, more deeply, more freely you. So let this be the moment you stop measuring your worth by someone else's reflection. You are not here to replicate, to compete, or to prove. You are here to become fully, honestly, and unapologetically. Your journey is valid. Your pace is enough. And your voice, your truth, your presence in this world matters more than any comparison ever could. Choose to honor your own path. Choose to celebrate others without abandoning yourself. And above all, choose to grow in the direction of your own light, because the most powerful thing you can ever be is authentically you.